episode of Community Crime Solvers Live! Yay!
Crime solvers, you know what I'm saying?
No, I didn't know what you were saying. No.
Alright. So again, Sherman Holmes, this is called Bus Station Bomber.
Oh, I got this one. I like this one
Bus
already.
station bomber, let's go.
Where have you been? Sergeant Wilson stepped back around the burned and mangled debris of what had been the rear wall of the Capital City bus terminal. I thought you must be sick. Gunther Wilson was secretly dependent on Sherman Holmes' habit of showing up uninvited at crime scenes. He certainly wasn't used to waiting 3 hours for the odd, pudgy millionaire to make an appearance. Sorry, old man, Sherman sniffled. I haven't been myself. Spring allergies. Wilson pointed to a 4-man squad arranging charred bits of metal on a white sheet. The bomb was in a locker. It went off at 3 p.m. There were a few injuries, but nothing serious. The mechanism was an old wind-up clock wired to 2 sticks of dynamite. It was triggered by the alarm mechanism hitting the 3. Do you have a motive? Not a clue. My guess is he did it for the thrill, like some sick arsonist we've dealt with lately. Let's hope we catch him before he tries again. Sherman glanced around the terminal. Did anyone see who used the locker? I got in touch with the night clerk. Wilson waved over a slight, sleepy-looking man. Mr. Pollard, tell my associate what you saw. Certainly. Andy Pollard adjusted his thick glasses and cleared his throat. Last night, I was coming into work around 2 a.m. I saw this cab driver parking out front. He walked in with a red travel bag and put it in that locker. Wilson waved again and 2 more men crossed over to join them. We've checked with the cab companies. Only 2 taxis were in the area around 2 a.m. Unfortunately, Mr. Pollard can't identify the driver. I remember the red bag, Pollard apologized, but not the guy's face. The first driver was a tall, fair-haired lad barely out of high school. I've been driving for a month, he explained. I picked up a passenger at the airport, dropped her off at a hotel on the corner. That was around 2. Then I filled up at a gas station on Highland and ended my shift. If this guy says I came in here, he's lying. I haven't been in the bus station in years. The second driver was around the same height, but middle-aged with a pronounced gut hanging over his belt.
Oh, he's guilty.
I dropped off a fare in front of the terminal, he told him. My fare said he'd left his car in the parking lot earlier in the day and had to pick it up. That was a few minutes after 2. Then my dispatcher sent me to a bar on 5th to pick up a drunk. No one was there. A man waved me down and I took him to an all-night diner on Swan Street. It's all in my logbook if you don't believe me. One of the members of the bomb squad was standing by, waiting for a chance to speak. Excuse me, Sarge, he said. The container was a red bag, just like the witness said. A red leather satchel. Thanks, Wilson said. He turned to Sherman and shrugged. Not much to go on, huh? Just enough to give us the bomber, Sherman purred. I can't tell you why he did it, but I can certainly tell you who. Who bombed the bus station, and what fact clued Sherman in?
That one was tricky. That was real tricky. So we have the dude that was...
Keep your mouth shut, Apollo.
We have the dude with the same height. And we only had 2 people this time?
There were 2 people. There were 2 drivers. About the same height.
I was gonna say, can you read what each one of them said one more time?
Sure.
That's cheating.
It's cheating.
I think it's the tall, out of high school taxi cab driver.
What?
Be-
I want to hear this. Why?
because because like he's only been driving for a month, but he said he hasn't been at the bus terminal for years.
Well, I got out of that if you were like a taxi driver, you'd probably be you probably be picking people up from the bus terminal like all the time, right? I think. Like people travel by bus and then they call a cab to get to wherever they need to go.
You would imagine.
Yeah.
And so
True.
it's kind of weird they never hasn't been there.
I mean,
Maybe. See, I feel bad because I want to ask you to read something again, but
Go ahead.
no,
read-
make it too easy.
so maybe it was the guy that he dropped off. He dropped him off
Like,
at the
it's not
bus
even the
terminal,
driver,
right?
it's
That ain't even the driver. He dropped him
Like,
off at the bus terminal.
I thought the drivers were going to end up telling the story.
I'm gonna go a different route. I'm gonna say it was not one of the drivers at all. It was the guy that he dropped off.
The guy who,
That the guy that the second driver dropped off?
because he totally dropped off. Well, no, he didn't drop off. So never mind.
He dropped him off at the bus terminal a couple minutes after too.
Because he totally forgot his car there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That
Here's
just-
what I don't understand. Now, these two drivers were there at 2 a.m.
Only
This
one
bomb-
was.
What? No.
I thought the first guy said he hadn't been to the bus terminal.
Oh, that's right. He hadn't been there. He dropped someone off at a hotel on the corner.
Mhm.
Okay, so the second bus driver is there at 2 a.m. The alarm on the bomb
was it-
goes off at 3 p.m.
right.
It's an old wind-up clock, which means these clocks cannot tell the difference between 3 a.m. and 3 p.m.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
So if the clock had to be put in there at like 4 for it to wait till 3 p.m. to go off. This is what's throwing me, because you have these two drivers who are there in the vicinity at like 2 in the morning.
So you're saying that it was planted earlier,
Later.
later? Okay.
Well, you also have to think it could have been planted then, but they could have put it. So, like, let's say they drop it off at 2 a.m., but let's say they have it set to 4 o'clock. They could set it to go off when 3 p.m. comes around, but in their mind it was some different time. Like, you can pre-wind it. So, like, what I'm saying is they didn't drop it off at 2 a.m. for it to go off at 3. They might have wound it past 3 o'clock so that way it would go around the clock face and then come back.
So they could have put it there like at 4 a.m. or 4 p.m. and it will go all the way around.
Right.
Yeah.
But Vince, who do you think it is? Fred's saying it's the guy. Frankie said driver 1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The
do you-
younger kid, see, because I don't do bus stations and terminals, so I can't even put my personal flair to this one. The night clerk, Mr. Pollock, right? Yeah, Mr. Pollock. I'm really probably going to say the younger guy, because the second guy claims he has a log, which he can also, if he wants to like, why do they cut off and say, I have a log, do you believe me? Then check the log and see if that's true.
Well, why did they mention the red bag? That had to be something important, right?
A red leather satchel.
Right, and this dude said he remember seeing the red bag, but not the face. And
Okay, let's hear it, Apollo. Let's hear it. You know you.
No, Vince hasn't said who it is yet.
I think I'm just going with the first dude because I didn't catch whatever it was to catch this time around. Aside from, well, no, that's not a big detail.
Okay, Apollo. I'm anxious to hear it.
I think I know his answer.
It threw me off.
I wanted to see if there was some information regarding it being an old wind-up clock, but we don't have anything except a kid who was just out of high school and an older guy. Who,
Right. So you would think like if it's old, like if it's an old mechanism, it's probably the older guy. But I'm gonna say it was the first driver. The reason why I got thrown off was why did he fill up his cab at the end of his shift? That's the like one thing that threw me off because the first driver says he dropped somebody off at the hotel at 2 a.m., which could have been a lie. And then he said he went down to the gas station to fill his car up at the end of his shift. Normally, and I don't know if this is true with every cab company, but you have to bring the cab back to the hub, and that's where you usually fuel up. You don't have to go to the gas station. So the fact that he's saying he had to go fuel up, I don't know. It seems fishy to me.
No, that's right. Again, something no knowledge would freaking. We don't know how cab people work. We don't got cab. Well, we do, but not like y'all city folk. But
and maybe he was fueling up to get away. That's my thought.
Could have been.
He's a liar.
What do you think, Desi?
Well, I am going with, to be totally and utterly wrong, I don't think it's either of the drivers. I'm blaming Pollard, the night guard.
Andy.
Yeah, I blame Andy because of this whole. It went off when the alarm thing struck 3. That was the mechanism of how it did. It was triggered by the alarm mechanism hitting the 3. So it was set after 3 a.m. The drivers weren't there. So I'm going with Andy.
I like that, actually. I kind of like that. I'm not going to change my answer, though. I'm still going to be the most ridiculous answer and say the guy that got dropped off was the one that did it. But go for it.
All right. Okay, so the answer. The 2 cab drivers, the clerk, and the bomb squad officer all gaped in disbelief. Sergeant Wilson tried to look nonchalant. I caught the clue too, he lied. But I'll let you have the fun of telling them. That would be me. I got it for the rest of the class. Please share. Thanks, Sherman said, playing along. If the perpetrator had picked a more complex bomb, it wouldn't have been so easy. But that's what makes it hard, the bomb squad officer objected. You could buy a wind-up clock just about anywhere. And as for the sticks of dynamite... Let's stick with the clock, interrupted Sherman. The alarm hand is what set off the explosives, correct? Correct. So let's say it's 2 p.m. and I set the alarm for 3. When will the bomb go off? 3 a.m. or 3 p.m. the next day? 3 a.m., of course, an hour later. Then how do you explain the fact that the bomb didn't go off until 13 hours after the witness saw it placed inside the locker? The bomb expert scratched his head. I can't explain it. That's right, Sherman said. There's no way to explain it, except that the night clerk is lying. He planted the bomb himself, sometime after 3 a.m.
No fair, you seen the answer. Wow. Well, see? You looked at the answer.
I did not!
Guilty! Guilty! That was a good one. That was a good one. That was a good one.